This video is FERPA training for faculty at Millsaps College. FERPA stands for the Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. It is also known as the Buckley Amendment and is a federally mandated law that applies to all institutions, including public K-12 schools, receiving funds by the Department of Education. FERPA governs the disclosure of education records maintained by an education institution and access to those records. Who is given rights under FERPA? FERPA gives privacy to all students, K-12 students and higher education students. The main difference in FERPA between these two levels is that the rights ascribed to the parents at the K-12 level are instead ascribed to the students once they turn 18 or attend a post-secondary institution. In regards to higher education, FERPA rights begin when the student is in attendance as defined by the institution. FERPA rights continue after the student leaves the institution and are only terminated upon death of the student. FERPA does not apply to applicants who have not been admitted to the institution. Student rights under FERPA include the right to inspect and review their education records, right to request an amendment to those education records, right to limit disclosure of their information, and the right to file a complaint with the Department of Education concerning an alleged failure of Millsaps College to comply with FERPA regulations. So, what are these education records then? Well, records that contain any information directly related to the student and are maintained by the education institution. These records can be in any media, including they can be handwritten, print, email, tapes, discs, film, electronic, microfilm, microfiche, any sort of media. They do not include personal notes, law enforcement records, medical records, employment records, or information on a person that was obtained when no longer a student. So example, alumni records. It has to be information related to the person as a student. What information can be released? Almost anything can be released to anyone as long as you have a student signature. That's the most important. So the FERPA form is provided to students at the time of their admissions and throughout their enrollment at Millsaps College. It can be found on the Office of Records website. That's the FERPA authorization form. And I'll show you how to access that in just a moment. The student needs to turn in the form to the Office of Records with a signature in order for it to be processed. The Office of Records then inputs this information into DataTel, or what's also called Major Access, so that college offices across campus, as well as faculty, are aware of the student's privacy settings. The only time you do not need a signature is when the student is filed as a dependent on the parent's most recent IRS tax submission form. In that case, if that's true, the parent or the student will need to show that information to the Office of Records so the information can be input. Some highlights here is that students do not have a right to see information about other students. They do not have a right to see the financial records of their parents, nor do they have a right to see letters of recommendation for their admission to Millsaps. What information can be released? So the law allows disclosure without signature for several things. For schools, if a student is seeking admission to another institution, they allow it for school employees who have legitimate educational interests. They allow it for consultants of Millsaps College, accrediting organizations, organizations doing certain studies on behalf of the college, parties in connection with financial aid, government officials with the U.S. Department of Education, if there's been a subpoena or a judicial order, appropriate parties who need to know in case of health and safety emergencies, parents of dependent students according to the IRS code, parents when their student, which is under 21, is found to have violated the alcohol and drug policy at Millsaps College, and any person requesting directory information on a student. So directory information, what is that? Directory information is defined by the institution. This is how it's defined in our college catalog. Directory information includes name, email address, major, etc., etc. This information, directory information, can be found in our student directory, which is in print. It can also be found on the Millsaps website if you go to locate. Finally, it's found in education verifications. So maybe an employer or maybe an insurance company contacts the Office of Records to ensure that the student is indeed enrolled in classes, and that company or that insurance may want to know their dates of attendance, the name, their major. That information is where we are allowed to give that information out without a student's signature. Information that can never be included in directory information is personally identifiable information, which is social security number, race, ethnicity, etc. So there is a way for students to not want this information from the directory to be published. So if that is the case, they would need to fill out a form with the Office of Records to withhold their information from the directory. So as a faculty member, how do you know if a student has signed a FERPA form? Well, you'll go to Major Access. So let me show you how. There's two ways you can view FERPA information based on your advisee list, or you can view FERPA information on the class roster. So let's go ahead and get out and go to Major Access and see how that works. Here we're at the Millsaps College homepage, which is millsaps.edu. If you go to Quick Links and you click Major Access, it's going to bring you to this page. So I'm going to go ahead and log in. If you go to class roster, click the term, go ahead and click Submit, click the class. This is the students enrolled in your class. If you click FERPA information and click Submit, it'll display the FERPA information. You can also find FERPA information by going to My Advisees, click Submit for the term. This is the student, click Action, View FERPA information, click Submit. This FERPA information will display. It would be the same page in the class roster. This information indicates that you can talk to Hannah Adams about Kathy's records, academic records. If no information is shown down here, that means the student has not filled out the FERPA authorization form. Now, for a student to fill out the FERPA authorization form, they need to go to the Millsaps College website, millsaps.edu/records. They can click FERPA. This gives information about FERPA, what FERPA is. It gives the policy that's in our college catalog. This is the FERPA authorization for release of records form. This is the form that students need to fill out. They would input the name and address and phone number of the person that it is okay for us to speak with about their education records. They would sign it and return this form to the Office of Records. Once the Office of Records input that information, that's when it would show on Major Access that it's okay for you to speak with this particular person, maybe a parent, something like that. I also talked about during the PowerPoint presentation that there's a form for students to fill out if they do not want to be on the directory. So the directory can be found here, locate. You could type in a student's name and you could find their information. Clicking back. If they don't want to be on locate or they don't want to be in the imprint directory, they can fill out this form, which is request for non-release of directory information form. As long as this form is filled out and turned into the Office of Records, they will be taken off of locate. If they decide later that they actually do want to be on locate, they can fill out this cancellation of request for non-release of directory information form. So that gives you the information you need to know about FERPA. If you have any questions, please contact us in the Office of Records at Millsaps College. Thank you.